I need their input, their diversity of thought to make better choices. People aren't going to remember what is on my slide. They're going to remember the story that I tell. I'm not sure I would be where I am today without some external coaching. Learning is one of the biggest motivators to me. I'm being naturally curious. There is nothing greater for me than
In this Sports and Outdoor Mentors episode, I chat with Charlotte Cox, the EMEA President for Pentland Brands, a privately held UK business that owns iconic sports and lifestyle brands including Speedo, Berghaus and Endura. We chat about the impact of having a coach, putting yourself out of your comfort zone and the importance of remaining authentic, plus much more. I hope you enjoy the episode. If you do, please like and comment, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. So, Charlotte, maybe before we get into the meat of the interview, I'm interested to actually understand what you would like the audience to maybe get out of this conversation.
Oh, that's a great first question, straight in, Dan.
Straight in with a killer.
Well, on a personal level, I think I just would like to get out of the fact that I'm human and that I'm an authentic leader, and that's probably on a personal level really important to me, because I think leadership has changed a lot over probably the last 5-10 years. So some of the softer skills are really at the forefront, and being authentic and a humble leader, I think is really important. So I just want to make sure that people see the real me.
Okay, great. Well, let's do our best to make sure that happens. But I think it's interesting because even saying that and starting with that, I think kind of sets the tone, because as you said, I'm not sure maybe somebody in your position, as you said, 5-10 years ago, would have even be comfortable with even putting that out.
Yeah.
So I think that's great. I think that sets the tone very nicely. So you've spent now almost 20 years within the sporting goods industry.
You make me sound really old.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, it's 30 years for me, so don't worry. It makes me feel even older. But before you joined the industry, you spent a few years in different industries. So initially kind of the lifestyle fashion, then watches, then lingerie. So I'm interested, and obviously at those days they were more kind of junior commercial sales roles. But were you able to kind of, when you look back, what did you take away from those roles and those other industries that you've been able to kind of implement and action in your kind of later roles now in the sports side?
So I think the diversity of those different roles was super helpful, but the skill set, competency, discipline, particularly in the junior sales roles, I can remember the days where I'd come home at night and fax my orders through for the week or tally up my weekly sales. And remember through the modem we used to dial in. Those were really good disciplines of journey planning, time management, and then performance related metrics. So from an early in my career, those kind of core basics and fundamentals of commercial skills were deeply rooted in me, and then transferable between industries. So I think those were the kind of the early basics. Yeah. But I think the moment that I moved into broader sort of marketing roles, so some of the roles that I did were commercial with a hybrid of marketing in them. And particularly at Chantal, there was a lot of work done around how the brand showed up at retail and visual merchandising, and the importance of connecting with consumers at the point by which you can influence them. Okay. And so when I came to Pentland and to Speedo, particularly, that was the first brand that I joined when I joined Pentland 20 years ago. That was a very new thing in terms of retail marketing, and how you show up for the consumer, particularly within the swim category. It's an incredibly unloved category at retail. So and still is,
Yeah.
unless you're a category leader that wants to go and take ownership for that space. So I was able to bring in some of the basic fundamentals that I'd learned through lingerie into the swimming environment, and it's intimate apparel, right? So it's not completely a strange leap across. And it was actually an easier transition because all of the buying and merchandising teams that I worked with at Chantel, whether in the UK, whether that was John Lewis, House of Fraser, etc., they're all the same buyers that swim, buy lingerie.
Okay.
So that was my entry point from different smaller category, or a big category in lingerie and a slightly smaller category of swimwear within that channel.
Okay. And so you rejoined Pentland then in 2005, I think, in as you said, in Speedo, and since then you've touched many of the other different brands and are obviously now overseeing all of the brands within the EMEA. But it feels like you've had a strong connection to sporting goods since you rejoined. And I know that as a child I think you played hockey and you were part of a swim club, so sport was obviously somehow quite an important part of your life. Was that a driver to kind of get into the sporting goods industry, or was it just, like you said, it was like somehow a step from lingerie to swim that was obvious, or did you always have maybe that aspiration to join the sporting goods industry?
It was definitely a opportunity that arose to move across, but sport had always been a huge part of my life. So when the opportunity arose to move into Speedo and particularly the competitive space, I think the disciplines of sport and everything that teaches you about time, teamwork, respect, or particularly around team sports as well, was really, I've always been real fundamentals to me. So the opportunity to go and then work in a commercial space on a brand like Speedo in an environment that is, you're dealing with some of the best athletes in the entire world at the Olympics, just had this huge draw to me. So there were two reasons really. One is it was an easier transition from a category perspective, but secondly, definitely the undercurrent of sport, and then the Pentland portfolio, right? Because it wasn't then just going to be about Speedo. At some stage I could navigate potentially a move across the brands, and with Canterbury and then Mitre coming in, it would make a great opportunity for me at some further stage in my career.
So that's interesting. So at that stage you were already somehow thinking, okay, this as you just said, is a great opportunity for me because I do a good job in this role, and that will lead to other roles, potentially other brands. So you talked about team sports there, and you've just kind of hinted at your ambition even at an earlier age. So is that ambition competitive nature? Is that something that's somehow inbuilt, or is that something that you've developed over the years?
I think it's innate. I'm not going to try and hide from it. I think it started at a very young age, and I think my father had a massive influence on my career, actually, when I think about and choices, inadvertently, because it wasn't a pushy parent. He wasn't the parent that shows up at the side of a five-a-side football and wants me to be part of the team and all the rest of it. Nothing like that. It was just, he always taught me that there's nothing I can't do, and that I should always give something a try and give it my best. And I think that championing from particularly a male figure early in my career, early in my upbringing, has really helped me through my career. And I think that seeding early into my mindset of an innate belief that anything is possible. And there's no reason why, if not me, why not? So I use that as a little bit of energy and a little bit of drive to make sure that or just to set me in the right direction. Use it as a bit of a super strength, I guess.
And so you've spoken before about the fact that actually when you were younger, you were quite shy.
Yeah,
And
really shy.
you did amateur dramatics to kind of bring that out. Was that something that was encouraged from your dad?
Both parents, actually.
Okay.
Really supportive. And I was really shy. I wouldn't even answer if the telephone rang at home, I wouldn't even answer it. I was scared to death of answering it.
Yeah.
And my parents just encouraged me to think about putting myself out my comfort zone.
Okay.
So, and not going getting a leading starring role, but just go into the chorus and be part, because again, the whole ethos of being part of the team, the broader power of the collective. So you just go in the chorus.
Yeah.
And to start with. And so just found my comfort zone in that, and found my place to start with.
Yeah.
And then built my confidence from that. So, and then when the opportunity came, I just worked my way up to a couple of supporting roles, and then took like one of the lead roles at one stage. So
wow.
Yeah, so
Great.
It's brilliant that I had that opportunity, but it
Yeah.
definitely helped my confidence outside of school.
Yes.
So I did that as an outside of school activity.
Yeah.
Alongside then doing things like swimming for county or playing hockey or whatever.
Okay, but that combination then of that competitive nature, obviously you're competing from a swimming point of view, playing hockey, and then putting yourself out of your comfort zone with the amateur dramatics. I think that's a good somehow early combination and early foundations to build, because I think if I look at your career and again listen to previous interviews you've had, you talked about the time when at Pentland you moved into the first role where you were overseeing products, and you were kind of again it's like the same thing, it's like out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
But so I'm interested, I mean, when you look back at your career now with Pentland, which has been so, well, like I said, so almost 20 years for this phase, and you've had an amazing career, starting out in, as we said, compared to what you're doing today, reasonably junior commercial roles, going through to brand leadership roles, product leadership, now region leadership for the group. What would you identify as some of the kind of key success factors? I'm sorry, that's a terrible thing to say, but it's very corporate, but key success factors in enabling you to succeed and do that?
So I think I've been really lucky to have some amazing leaders at different levels, not just direct line managers, but broader leadership in Pentland. And it's been a place where I have just built this amazing career, and I've had the opportunity to test myself, stretch myself outside my comfort zone. I'm a massive learner. Learning is one of the biggest motivators to me. I'm being naturally curious about something, usually honestly born of frustration about why can't we do this, and then I need to go and understand a particular process or end to end to kind of figure out, well, okay, that's the way we do it now, but could we do it a different way? So it's usually born of that reason. But I guess having a champion or multiple, in my case, champions, and having that belief, and sometimes when I didn't believe it myself, and sometimes when your learning curve flattens and others can spot that and just give you a poke, and even when I thought no, I'm not ready for kind of that leap over there, and someone believing in you as well. So that's probably been a big thing for me, and just broadening my skill set, my competency, my toolkit has been a really important part of the career that I have built over the last 20 years. But Pentland have absolutely provided me with the opportunity to build a career and the opportunity to go and explore different areas of the business and be a really rounded leader.
Yes, yeah. But I think there's still also must be something fundamentally in you as well, because it can't be just about the fact that you've been, championed. Of course that plays a big role, but somehow I think it must go back to that, that competitive nature, that willingness to put yourself out of your comfort zone and challenge yourself. Because, okay, then sometimes, yes, you need you need those champions or those coaches and mentors. And out of interest, have you ever worked with kind of external mentors or coaches before?
Many times, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a coach at the moment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And what value does that provide you? Because I think that's something that a lot of the audience are always, and I get a lot of messages about, about mentors and coaches, and would I recommend it? So it's always, and the answer is clearly yes, but I'm always kind of interested to get other people's experiences.
There's been moments through my career, I'm not sure I would be where I am today without some external coaching. And the only way I can liken it to is like, look at the likes of Adam Peaty, British swimmer. Look at the likes of Michael Phelps. They have a coach constantly giving feedback and observing. And so I don't think it's strange that people at even my level would have a coach, because we don't always have the answers. There is a massive myth that leaders have all the answers and that they're perfect and they always get things right, and that's absolutely not true. So that's probably another thing I want to get out of today, is dispel the myth of a leader.
yeah, absolutely.
So for me, I look for a coach that is different to me. It's wise, slightly different, could see the world in a different way, not afraid to challenge me, hold me to account, and just get me thinking from a different perspective. And usually, it's, sometimes I'll just go in with a thought and the conversation or a hypothesis, and by the end of it, that coach has just helped me figure it out or make sense of it, a more structured way of thinking, and drawn off the red threads. And it's super helpful that usually a coach is somebody who's not connected to your industry, in my experience.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So that's interesting. So you've very purposefully gone out to look for somebody to support on certain things and identify people outside. So has that been through recommendations? Again, what advice would you give people if somebody was looking for some coaching or mentoring support externally? Was that through recommendations, or was it just a classic Google search, or how did you go about finding that right person for you?
I'm going to be crediting Pentland now, because actually there's been a lot of support that's been offered to myself and colleagues over the years in terms of formalised coaching and different types of coaching providers. But there's so many of these networks now that exist of coaching that you can go and find and connect you to people. So. But the chemistry sessions of finding the right coach for you are really important. That's also what I found. It's like almost you're interviewing the coach before you sign up for it, because and you figure out what works. And sometimes a coach can only be with you for part of your journey. That's why I've had quite a few coaches over the years, because at some point you realise actually you need to mix it up and you need something different for the next phase. And that's okay.
Yes.
Again, if you look at the analogy with sport, that happens a lot. Look at Andy Murray with the different style of coaching techniques that he's had over the years to perform at his best. So
great, that's super good advice. So I touched on earlier on the time, I think again it was it Speedo, or was it I think it was Speedo, when you moved into the product role.
You're not going to let me forget that, are you?
Well, I think I'm now you make me feel bad. I think that you've been very open about the fact that was kind of as you said, it was out of your comfort zone. It was something very different. So, what was your approach? How did you handle that time? And what, looking back, would you do things differently? How did you go? How did you approach it?
So I think because I studied marketing at university, and then I did a year in marketing, and then I was away from that function for the best part of 8-9 years, and I felt like I needed to. I had a natural desire to go and do more work on the consumer side, around marketing, product, and particularly the product side. I think when you work in the commercial world and you've been in it a long time like I was, you get a sense of frustration around, right, well, my customer wants, or the consumer is demanding a particular style or colour in this, and why can't the product team just make this and make it in like 3 months? I don't get how long it takes.
Yeah.
Commercial people always say that, and I was absolutely one of them.
Absolutely.
Right?
Been there.
Yeah. And so I had this inner frustration in me to think about, I don't understand it, so I almost need to go and understand it and seek to understand, because otherwise I'm going to sit there and can continue to throw rocks.
Yeah.
And that's really unhelpful, right? Because it doesn't move things forward. So I think with that background that I had around being incredibly consumer-centric, I'd had a few conversations internally, and the head of product and marketing at the time knew my background, and he knew my instinct through natural curiosity of asking all the questions about why this, why that, couldn't we do it like this? And he just sat me down and said, I'm going to put this new role into the organisation, I'd love you to apply for it. And I did, and I got the job. But then I thought, oh my God, what have I actually done? Because now I am going to go and lead a team that builds product globally. And I don't know anything about how the end-to-end process of making product, from kind of a consumer insight through to design, through to developing it, through to factory, and actually going to the shop floor. I know how the sales process works, but I don't know that at all. But there was some fascination, because it was a problem-solving piece for me. That was the kind of desire to seek to understand, problem solve, because I kept thinking it can't take this long. There must be a way to fast track some of the, when you get the data points of, you have a product that a consumer wants in their hands, and now we just need to tweak it in a specific way or a different colour or whatever that is, or replenish it quickly. It made no sense to me. It would take kind of 6 months to do that. And so for me it was about understanding all of those parts and then rebuilding the process. And the desire to be part of blank canvas, and I was really given a blank canvas there to be able to go and look at it through different eyes and look at it consumer back. So through the lens of the consumer, the customer, back into the organisation. And I might not understand how to, design a product, and there are incredibly talented people that do that in our organisation and many others. But what I do know is I do understand the journey from customer back, from consumer, customer back. And therefore I could look at the world in a different way. And what I realised, even though I was terrified of then going to lead a team that was made up of design, development, and linking into sourcing, that I might not know that, but I do understand that, and that's something I can uniquely bring.
But well, there's two things actually I want to pick up on. One was that you talk about kind of the desire or willingness to ask a lot of questions. And I think so many people, well, I know that many people sit in meetings and are thinking, what are these people talking about? I have no idea. And very few people are actually willing to ask the question. And I think that's something that is so important. One, I think it goes back to the kind of authenticity and integrity topic, but also it's just about being somehow vulnerable, but
Absolutely.
Showing that you're open to learning. But I feel like there's this fear that people, I guess, are worried about looking stupid or whatever, but in my experience it's 80% of the people in the room are thinking the same thing. So there is a fear, obviously, with people, because the brain is wired for safety. So, and psychological safety is a massive thing. They don't want to just put themselves out there. So how, maybe linked to that, so how, with your team, how do you work with them to try and encourage them to make sure that they're as willing to be as open and vulnerable as you are in terms of asking questions? Because I'm sure it's, of course it works both ways.
Absolutely. So sometimes it's easier for people not to have their name attached to a question as well, or them, the personalisation of a question. So technology has advanced so much now. So sometimes when we do Q&A sessions, even if people are in a room, we can use a technology platform so they can go on their phone and ask the question and it pops up.
Yeah.
So it's anonymised.
Yeah.
And then people have the environment where they're not fear of ridicule or,
Sure. Yeah.
you know, but they're often, as you say, they're going to ask the question that 80% of the audience are also thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think it's about how you set teams up. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of building what I think about unstoppable winning teams, right? There is nothing greater for me than, you know, whether we succeed or whether we fail, is like we did it together.
Yeah.
And I have so many proud moments through my career of being able to do it, and the feeling and looking each other in the eye. And it's no different to when you're, you know, on the field of play. If you're used to working in a team sport environment that I was, whether that's football, hockey, whatever it was, you know, you're in it together, and you're in it together whether you win or lose.
Absolutely.
And so I think as a leader, the environment that I like to create is, you know, everybody has a voice at the table, particularly from my leadership team.
Yeah.
You know, I need them around that table to help make decisions. I need their input, their diversity of thought to make better choices.
Yes.
And very often, you know, what I came in with and a point of view, it will get better and sharper. It might even completely change because of that diversity of thought that I've brought into the room.
Interesting. So let's I want to come back to the diversity of thought topic, because I think it's super interesting on so many different levels. But when you're thinking about bringing new people into your team, for example, what are the behaviours then that you're kind of looking for, you're thinking about to make sure that they're going to be an integral part of that unstoppable team that you just talked about?
So there's the fundamentals, right, for me, of kind of core competency in a particular function that I'm bringing them in. Whether that's sales, whether that's marketing or merchandising, operations planning, right? There's the basics. So the non-negotiables are, you know, are they reliable? Do they say what they're going to do? You know, are they credible? Do they have expertise, experience in that discipline? Right? They, for me, are a given.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hire someone on that alone.
Sure.
And they've got to be able to have the softer skills, for me as a leader, around authenticity, but authenticity with vulnerability. Otherwise, authenticity is completely fake.
Yeah.
They've got to be able to put themselves out there and show their whole self and be vulnerable. They don't have all the answers.
Yeah.
You know, use their team, get out of the way, give people stretch assignments, encourage them to go and explore a new idea versus, oh, this is the way we do things around here. Or explore all of that and the art of possible. So those are the types of people that I want around my table, and that bring something add into the organisation. You know, very often I'll recruit people that have, you know, maybe done, if they're coming in to do the sales director role, right, they'll have that core competency, but they'll have done something else in their career.
Okay.
As well, whether that's, I don't know, a demand planning role or a marketing piece. I'm looking for breadth, because that's, again, it points to me of a natural curiosity to do something a little bit broader, a bit more rounded, and that's the type of leader that I want to surround myself in, that's going to bring and challenge and think about a different perspective that I might not have thought of, which I won't have thought of.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think those, like you said, those fundamental skills or experiences are, let's say, easy to identify. The soft skills, though, are more difficult. You know, authenticity is, I would say, difficult to identify. You know, through an interview process. So, what are you kind of looking for in an interview process? What are you doing to try and make sure that they're kind of delivering upon those kind of behaviours, those fundamentals that you're looking for? Because it's tough, right?
I think one of the probably the most hideous questions, so if you ever get interviewed when you're watching this by me, I apologise in advance, I'll try not to use this ever again then, is when I ask somebody the question. So I'll give them a scenario and then I'll say, right, your team are in front of you in 15 minutes, give me your elevator pitch.
Okay.
This is the scenario, what are you telling your team?
Yeah.
And that draws out quite a lot actually.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In terms of the way that they approach that impact moment.
Yeah.
Because it's the impact moments that are going to matter when you're stood in front of a couple of people, one person. What you say as a leader has such significance.
Yes.
And sometimes we don't realise that until it's too late. The words that we use, the way we say it, the way we engage. And there is nobody's perfect at that. You also learn by doing.
Yeah.
But there is definitely an art form to being considered.
Yes.
And just thinking about your audience and connecting with them on a human level.
Yeah. But that's, I completely agree. And I think that's, let's say, doing that in an in-person environment is one thing.
Yeah.
Doing that remotely over Teams or whatever.
That's really hard.
Is so much more difficult.
It's really hard.
I
do that every single month. I do a functional brief for the entire EMEA region every month, and it's really hard because it requires me to give. I'm exhausted after doing it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like 150 people on there and can only see 7 squares or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm just looking at some PowerPoint, looking at me, and I have to bring so much of myself. That's the amateur dramatics has to come out.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I have to draw on a lot of that.
Yes.
To there be personal energy.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about leadership. You've got to commit and be your whole self.
Yeah.
And they deserve that, right? They deserve the best possible version of me in those moments. So I'll put a lot of time. Yes, it's time, it's energy, but I know that what I say in that 40 minutes that I'm going to talk, and it will be mixed with, I'll usually bring some of my other leaders on to give an update on something or a spotlight session. So I like to bring the diversity in, so it isn't just about me. But it's an opportunity for me to talk to the region and get behind a single message about what's the priority for this month. Highlight some of the what I call gold medal moments that we can celebrate success and use that to power up. That's what I mean about the red thread too. You can see coming through building on unstoppable teams.
Yeah.
And then, just honestly making sure that I am myself and sharing my reflections, my honest reflections of what I'm seeing going on externally or internally over the last month, what's going on out there. And really connecting in. And there could be something that's happening externally as well in that particular moment. That's what I mean about tuning in to the mood of people. Whether it was the riots that were happening. I was doing a functional brief the day after a number of the riots were happening. And I knew that there were people in my team that required me as a leader to say something in that moment, to show up for them and connect with them. So although I had my script and I had everything else, I just need to tune in to, it's about understanding your people and what's important to them.
Absolutely. You said there that it's something that's, in that example that you give, it's obviously quite a draining process for you, but you've also talked in the past about that for those situations you're somebody that really invests in the planning and you like to be really planned and prepared for those situations. So how do you do that? What's your approach to kind of preparing for anything like that, or maybe it's a presentation to the board, or what's your approach? Because I've always been quite a planner as well, and I used to have this thing about I always wanted to be the most prepared person in the room.
Not always possible, right?
Not always possible. But knowing I definitely wasn't the smartest person in the room, I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm the most prepared person, or try to be. But how do you do that? Because it's tough, you've got a very, senior role, you've got a lot of different responsibilities, and taking time out of those kind of day-to-day tasks to really prepare for, those functional briefs or board meetings or whatever it might be. It's tough. So, what's your approach to that?
I think creating space to lead is critical. And I probably have only started to master that art in the last 2 to 3 years, honestly. Because since I came on into this role and then I sit on the Pentland exec team, my diary can fill up dramatically, right? And that's one of the biggest frustrations that I have. So I have to really take control of that and create time within my diary for thinking time and planning time and prep time, because most of it is actually about the thought process. It's not about the words on the page. It's what I say and how I say it and how I tell a story. Like, again, when we talk about authenticity, is people aren't going to remember what is on my slide. They're going to remember the story that I tell.
Very true.
So, I've got a conference next week. It's my European conference where I'm bringing the entire region together. And whilst I'm doing all the slides, I am not thinking about, again, the words on the page and the numbers, and I'm thinking about what are the kind of key messages that I want people to leave with. What's the one memorable thing that I'm going to say that they're going to remember? Because there's going to be so much information, right? And they need a story from me. And there was a moment last year, I've got a lot to live up to, because one of the phrases that I used, and I won't say it here, but one of the phrases that I used last year became this kind of little bit of a chant through the region in the last 8 weeks of closing last year. So I've really had to think about how I'm going to now kind of raise the bar again personally, because there is an expectation now when you create those moments for people as a leader that you need to then continue to improve. So it's good for me. It tests me a lot to sit back and think about, like, what is the key message I want to say, and what's the story I'm going to tell, and how am I going to get people to galvanise behind what I need them to go do between now and the end of the year and help me.
So definitely taking time then for the leadership, and it sounds like you're very very focused on that communication part, on how you're communicating, on the message that you want to deliver. And is that something that has been natural to you in terms of having that thought process? Because I think it's not easy to do that, and I think I'm just thinking, is it because you've experienced maybe good and bad presentations in the past, and you're like, okay, because we've all been in those presentations where it's just like, you just don't remember anything. And as you said, if people can come away just remembering one thing, oftentimes that's a massive win.
Absolutely.
Because especially in sales meetings, that sort of thing, that it's just information overload.
Absolutely.
And as a senior leader in a business, being able to leave one message is super powerful. But it's not easy. So it's a learned.
Okay. It's a learned skill.
Okay. For
sure. And like you say, there's been so many influences through my career of good and bad examples of that, of leaders. And I think that's what you do as a leader. Everyone's leadership style is their own. And I'd like to think that I'm taking sort of the good bits and leaving the bad bits behind of what I'm observing. And probably people are going to do the same with me. They're going to say, I like what she did there, but I'm going to leave the bad bits of Charlotte there as well. And that's really normal. But I remember the best bit of advice I had around leadership moments and impact moments was somebody saying to me, like, forget your notes. I used to be so well prepared, like scripted. I guess there's some part of that which is, on a stage you have a script. There's so much of that was innate through me, through my background. The bit that was the most liberating piece of advice for me is I remember somebody saying to me, forget your cue cards, because I used to have cue cards like 10 plus years ago. Cue cards and be on stage, and I had to do this conference in Asia, and it was a main stage with a microphone, like 150 people. It's the first time I've done anything like that in that environment, in a business context. I was absolutely terrified, and I had these cue cards, and I did the dress rehearsal for it, and the brand president at the time of Speedo came up to me and he was like, Charlotte, you know this, like, you're fixating on the cards and you're not showing you. And people are going to listen to you. So just be you and let go. Let go of the control. Like, stop trying to control it. Let go.
Yeah.
And honestly, it was the best experience. It was entirely liberating for me. It took me a while to practice it, honestly. And post that, I don't think I'm being really candid, I definitely didn't do it all the way through that session. But when I came back from that conference in Asia, there was an opportunity where we brought students in from the local university. I tend to do a lot of work locally with the university. And they came in for like a day, and they asked me to do like a small speech, something like 50 people in the building. And I thought, this is the day I'm going to do it, because it's a low risk environment. It's a safe environment, you know.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to know more about this subject than they're going to know.
Yeah.
And it's an opportunity for me to learn about myself and put myself in an uncomfortable situation and put my script down. And I had no intention to actually do it that day. I still had my cue cards. I'll never forget it. But the moment when my name came up on that slide, I just left them on there. And it was probably one of the best presentations I've ever done.
Interesting.
There is something really liberating about just like when you know your subject and you know your stuff and you can talk about it with real passion.
Yeah.
I shouldn't need a script.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I agree, it's super difficult. I mean, I was the same. I always used to, my Salomon days, you know, would write the script and, you know, would be backstage, like, reading it up until, like, the last minute. And in retrospect, I definitely feel like in doing that, unless you are a very good actor and you're very practiced, to be... Well, first of all, to be authentic in that situation and to be engaging and passionate. I mean, at least for me anyway, it was incredibly difficult.
I still do a lot of the groundwork around what I want to say and writing of like the narrative.
Yeah.
And then I'll unpack it in a way that then becomes the story. And I think the other tip that's been really useful is just thinking about the audience there's a really useful framework that I've learned, which is like, what do you want people to do?
Yeah.
Based on what you say, what do you want them to feel?
Yeah.
What do you want them to know?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
3 things.
Do, feel, know. That's good. Yeah. And it's that they always say that it's long term. It's the feel one that people remember. How did you make them
That's
feel?
why I talk about the story. The storytelling is usually the bit that they remember.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Interesting. This is great. If only for me.
You do realise that I'm not the seasoned pro, and you're always still like learning, right?
Sure.
I don't want, and that's why I say at the outset, I want people to see the real me, because I would hate anyone to be watching this saying that she's obviously got this completely nailed down and is a seasoned pro in this, because you know as well as I do, we are not perfect. Leaders are not perfect, and we don't always get it right.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the things I do want to say is, actually, that was a big myth for me in my career for a very long time, up until only about 10 years ago. You wouldn't believe there were 2 myths I had. Leaders are perfect, and you can't make a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure.
And I felt a huge sense of relief when I realised both those things weren't true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was wired as well, a perfectionist gene in me. I was very different from my brother growing up. You know, my brother was, I think he is very naturally gifted, naturally intelligent, just gets it super bright. I had to really work. My dad always used to say I used to spend hours doing prep, assignments, revision. And my brother would always say, why are you spending time doing that? I'm like, because I don't get it as quick as you. I need to sit down and actually think about something.
Yeah.
My brain is different. I'm going to need to, process a bit.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's just a different thinking style. So I definitely found it. And because of that, I sort of trained my brain to think, I need to know everything. And it needs to be perfect.
Yeah. But I think what you say resonates so much with me. It's amazing. But I think, you saying it was, let's say, roughly 10 years ago that you kind of, that realization came to you. But I think probably at that time, there's a reason why it came to you then, and I'm guessing it's linked to your then leader, but or manager or whatever,
it's
or
exactly
coach
that.
or And I think that's such a great illustration of what a good leader
Absolutely.
can do. You talked about psychological
Absolutely.
safety earlier on,
Yeah.
and for me it's that.
He turned around to me. There was a mistake that was made in the business, and I remember him turning around to me and saying, because I was sort of questioning how this could possibly happen. I remember the conversation so well. And he was like, but Charlotte, you've got to realise we're not perfect. I think I was so sort of fixated on the perfect version of a leader. And when he said it to me in his position, he was the most senior figure here in the brand at the time. And when he turned around to me and said, but you've got to remember, we're not perfect and we don't get everything right. And hearing those words coming from him, it was so powerful for me.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I felt this sense of absolute liberation. And I remember saying to him, why does nobody tell you this? Like earlier.
Yeah.
It was almost like this secret club that when you get to sort of middle and upper management, everyone talks about it, but nobody talks about it when you're coming in, when you're straight out of university. Like, the first 10 years of my career, I felt like, you had to be perfect. You couldn't make a mistake. You've got to have your armour on. And then I just felt so liberated once I knew that wasn't true. It sounds bizarre, I know, but...
No, but I think it's so true. It's so true. And I think that's why this sort of thing, for the few people that will listen, it's so valuable. It's more me than you, not you. But do you know what I mean? It's that's why I think these sort of conversations are so important, because it's so true. But I also think it does highlight an issue that, why does it take that long in your case? Okay, so that was 15 years into your career. And for me it was probably as long, maybe longer. So I think it goes back to almost the starting point of this discussion, where
it's the skills that people value, right?
Yeah.
And 20 years ago it would have been the harder skills,
Exactly.
the more skills around capability, around function. And now those, you have to have both in equal measure.
Absolutely.
And I have to know when to dial them up and dial them down as well. That's hugely important. But I think that's what's really changed in leadership over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
It's what we value, and also what are we willing to tolerate as well.
Yeah. So we've already discussed, today you're leading the Pentland Brands business for the EMEA region. You also sit on the board of the European Federation of Sporting Goods. I know I'm getting the naming the wrong way around, but I always do, but people will get the point. You've just mentioned that you often do work with local university. You have a husband, a dog, as I just discovered earlier on. Now, I'm not going to ask you about balance, because I know you don't like the balance, but how do you manage to integrate all of those and not implode? Because that's a lot going on, though.
Yeah, but I don't like the word balance, because you've obviously listened to something that I've done before, mainly because it's just not achievable. I just don't agree with it, because balance for me is about how does my work-life integration, and I'm really lucky, right? I get to work on all these amazing brands and be part of this incredible industry, which I feel really privileged on. So I might go to do a host at the Olympics for a few days over a weekend, and that's what a privilege as part of my job to be able to do that. So I think, but there'll be moments where, like, maybe I have had a really jam-packed week in my diary, and then I'm going to log off at 4:00 and I'm going to go and walk the dog, because actually I just need to come down and be the best version of myself for also my family at the weekend. And I think it's about understanding that there's a flex within that work-life integration model, that you can achieve that, but you just have to be able to flex it.
And do you plan? You talked earlier on about the fact that you're kind of planning time to think about things. Do you?
I'm quite disciplined with it now.
Okay.
I'm still work in progress, right? Because things are always coming in. So
Of course, yeah.
that perfect world doesn't exist. But where I can, possibly, I'm just like, switching off my emails, and in my diary I have thinking time. It's locked and nobody's getting in.
Yeah.
But also I think it sends the right message. Same for when I go on holiday, right? My team don't want to see me sending them emails when I'm on holiday.
For sure.
It sends completely the wrong message.
Absolutely.
Unless something's burning, they don't need to be hearing from me. No, and I tested that theory a couple of years ago when I was on the other side of the world on holiday in pretty much the wilderness in America, and I was actually really scared about not being contactable whilst I was away. But then I sat back and thought, you know what? I'm on a completely different time zone. A, I'm in the wilderness, and B, I'm on a different time zone. And by the time I actually see something and then respond, because it's me, they're going to respond to me. And by which time a decision should have been made in the space of 3 or 4 days. It doesn't need me. And I found it entirely liberating to not respond to anything in 2 weeks on an email.
Yeah.
I may have just checked in a couple of times, but I didn't reply to anything. Yeah. And the mess, people noticed it. That was the thing I was so surprised about. Even at my level, people said to me, I can't believe you didn't reply to that. And we didn't hear from you. And it's amazing the impact it had.
Yeah.
And I told this story on one of the functional briefings that I did around the importance of taking a break and recharging and being your best, and mentally recovering, and athletes do that. Like, again, all these red threads from the external world of sport is brilliant for that, because they practice. They are corporate athletes. They practice all of these disciplines, and then we forget that when we come into a work environment where we're in an office. But all of those basics of good sleep, exercise, diet. Am I perfect? I say absolutely not. But do I remember those 3 things and try and practice it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know when one of those things is off for me because I'm not on my best.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think the sleep one for me is one that I only have come to appreciate in the last maybe 3, maybe 5 years, I'm not sure. But I can clearly see that if I've not had a good night's sleep, everything else, actually, it impacts everything else, because I get lazy about the decisions I'm making about what I'm going to eat, and then it's a vicious spiral.
Well, it's vicious, absolutely.
A vicious spiral? You knew what I meant.
A vicious circle.
There we go.
I knew what you meant.
It's a downward spiral.
Yeah.
So I think that's the one I try and focus on, and I can definitely see that it has either a positive or negative impact.
Yeah. And I know when those things are going off balance for me, like my diary gets crammed, I start eating the wrong things, I get ill. And so a good measure of my getting the right balance has been in the last 2 years. I'm going to really regret saying this, but I haven't got ill. Other than COVID, I haven't had an illness. So I know that I've started to now get a system that's working for me. One of the most interesting things I found quite liberating was a boss saying to me that, what would please me, nothing more would please me, was about 4 or 5 years ago, than to call you and you'd be on a dog walk and saying, I'm just going for some thinking time. And I was like, what, in the middle of the day? Yeah. Because I know that's what you need to be at your best.
Yeah.
Because I am a deep reflector, so sometimes I'll just want to work something through, and the outdoors is a really great place for me. I find some of my best thinking I'm done when I'm out walking.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously the mental impact, positive impact, as well as the physical. Whether it's reflecting on something or just reflecting on nothing.
Yeah.
I think taking the time and allowing yourself to take the time is super important. And I think for somehow for younger generation that's more obvious.
Absolutely.
But I think, I don't want to say our generation here because I'm clearly older than you.
It's definitely our generation. I'll happily take it.
Okay, well, it goes back to that thing about being able to make mistakes, not knowing that you're not perfect. It's all connected.
Absolutely. It's all the influences that were around you or I when we were first coming in.
Yeah.
And you think that's reality, that's the truth, and somehow actually this generation of will have hopefully a better version of what leadership is and be able to practice that and make it even better for the next.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've touched a couple of times on the diversity topic, and I think whether we're talking about race, gender, culture, religion, whatever it is, I think it's clearly proved that having a diversity of thinking, a diversity of leaders across any of those different axes has a positive impact on business. And yet, I think we still have such a long way to go. As a female in a senior leadership position, what do you think we need to do better and more of to kind of accelerate this progress? Because it's, in my role as a headhunter, I still see it with some businesses, some clients, it's still a battle to even consider these topics. So yeah, what do we need to do? I know that's like an existential question here, but no pressure.
Let me make subject. It's a big subject. Where to start? I guess the hope that I see, and I see it in the people that I'm meeting externally now, peers in the industry, whether they're more gender balance at a senior level, particularly more women at a senior level, they are becoming more common than they were. There's still a huge way to go, as you've alluded to, but I think what excites me is the fact that I am seeing more women pop up into CEO roles in the sports and outdoor industry, and more women at my level on an executive board, and more of a gender balance on an executive board to start with. It's almost incredible, actually. There's some really fantastic women in this industry who I consider to be incredible peers and I'm massive cheerleaders for. So there is a kind of groundswell that's absolutely happening at the moment, and it is changing, but there is an enormous amount to be done. I think there's an opportunity for women to come together within the sports and outdoor industry, actually, and almost show who we are. Because very often, I feel really privileged that I know many of them now. I've built that network, but actually they don't know each other. So there's an amazing opportunity for us to actually almost state our claim on the industry, and galvanise. And I think that would do have an incredible impact moment for people, young women looking to come into the industry, and the shadow that casts down in a really positive way.
Absolutely.
So this is an industry for me,
yes.
Because we're going to need more women coming into the industry to represent the consumer.
Start with, exactly.
Yeah, because there's a huge amount of consumers that are women that haven't explored some of the the sports and outdoor industry yet, are too scared. The barriers to entry are too high, whether that's because they're not body confident, whether that's because us as brands not making the products that meet their needs, whether it's safety. Have we got the right changing facilities? If they want to go and play hockey or football, particularly young girls, after school when it's dark in the winter, they're going to be safely. How are they going to get there safely? Is it well lit? Have they got changing room facilities at some of these sports locations that are female specific changing rooms. Some real fundamentals in there. I mean, this is a massive subject, as you can see. I'm just exploring off into various routes, right? But all of those things have to see progress against. There needs to be a bigger investment, and but beyond that, like a massive understanding around, what are the barriers of entry into sport.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm always still though a bit surprised that at your level of role, yes, there are many more female leaders in our industry than there were even 5 years ago. But the statistics are very clear that, boards with senior leadership teams with a more balanced, a more diverse population are high performing. I mean, it's super clear.
Absolutely, the data is there, and it's not just gender as well, as you said. It's ethnicity,
exactly,
it's religion, whatever, different cultures. That diversity of thought is what makes a brilliant team.
Exactly.
And being surrounded by people that are different to you, that see the world in a different way, it is hugely powerful. And I think in the first part of my career, I have said this before on a few occasions, but I will say it again because I genuinely believe it. I used to surround myself and gravitate to people like me, right? There's an innate natural bias that you have.
For sure.
And until you realise that, and you can start to just recognise it, own it, just recognise it for what it is, and then step outside of that comfort zone. There's another red thread there, and embrace that diversity. It really opens up the aperture. I can remember there was a lady who I worked with 10 years ago who thought honestly completely opposite to me, and I'd be in meetings with her, and it felt like there was just constant questioning to my thinking, and the naive Charlotte would have said, gosh, what's wrong with her, why does she get it, why did she think like me? And it was only a couple of years later I suddenly realised, I did have some coaching actually, and I remember a coach saying, the power is not about somebody thinking like you, it's just think about it from her perspective and thinking about what she's bringing to the table, and she sees the world in a different way, which is also an opportunity. Think about, embrace it as an opportunity to learn and discover and be curious, because it could take you somewhere new.
Absolutely.
And honestly, that particular individual, fortunately she's no longer with us, but she became somebody who I would naturally go to solve problems. I mean, how ironic, right? The person I was often thinking about was probably the most different to me in terms of thinking style, in terms of approach. And I was really challenged by in meetings, and then had some external coaching on, became the person I would naturally then go to.
It was super interesting. So what was how did that coach, now we're trying to get into the details here, we're trying to learn something, what did they say or do to make you kind of realise the value of that? Because I think it's such a common thing. I think, we all know that I think when people are hiring as well, people often hire people that are very similar to themselves, because it's comfortable. But it's absolutely not where the good stuff happens. It's not going out of your comfort zone where you're learning. It's not where you don't have then this diversity of thought, which then limits innovation, etc., etc. So, what was it? Can you remember what it was that the coach said or did that kind of was? It was a bit like a light switch almost.
No, not specifically, but I drew on that experience not long ago, because we meet people in all walks of life that sometimes it's not always, there's not finding common ground for, and I think that's what I remember. I remembered that experience, so I don't remember the coaching specifics, but I remembered that experience, that I had that in my toolkit, and thought I recognised it. I didn't recognise it at first. I was really struggling. And I thought, I've been here before though, so I just need to think about the fact, recognise it, and then natural curiosity. So asking great questions. Why do you think that?
Yeah.
You know, lots of open questions to kind of drill and then find some common ground.
Yeah.
That's actually probably one of the big things that I take away from working with people that are different from me.
Yeah.
Where you can explore something, and sometimes you're often saying there could be a way to get to the same endpoint. It's just your journey and your perspective to get there.
Yeah.
It takes you in a few different directions before you land on the common ground space. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So I think that's a really good advice, isn't it? You know, it's okay. Yes, you're different, which as we've discussed, actually adds value if you're willing to see it. But then finding that common ground so you can get to that point. To being able to kind of discover what that value is super important.
Yeah.
Okay. This is great.
I think some honest conversations as well, recognizing and having an open conversation with that individual, and leaning in, because our natural tendency, our brains, I'll say, brains are wired for safety, right? Yeah. So we see someone that's different for us, like lean out. Oof, that's uncomfortable. But in that moment is where you then have to lean in.
Yeah. Great. So, who have been the people that have, would you say, been the biggest influence on you in your life? One you've probably mentioned with your dad.
Yeah. So my dad, I think, for all of the reasons I explained, and actually still is with me, even though he's no longer physically with me. I use it as when he passed away 2 years ago. I felt a huge sense of loss because he was such a big figure in my personal, but also from a career perspective. And he was just my coach. He was literally my everyday coach. But I reframed that sense of loss that I felt from him as an impact in my life into something really positive. So I'll give you an example. Sometimes when I'm feeling uncomfortable, when I'm feeling maybe a little bit apprehensive about something, I'll almost talk to him because it's the way I keep him alive.
Yeah.
And you know, just use him as a bit of a coach, thinking this is what you would have said to me, Dad, in this moment, and like you're with me. So, you know, I can hear all those phrases in my head. So I sometimes before a really big presentation, I'm going to give away all my secrets now. So you're going to know.
Point.
I did say I wanted to be the real me. But I'll often go into the ladies, and I'll go and look myself in the mirror, and I'll say out loud what he would have said to me when I was growing up, whether that was before I would go on stage, whether that was before a swim meet, whether that was for an exam, whatever those big pressure moments were to me. You know, I could hear him in my head, and I say it out loud because I recognise it, and it helps me manage the pressure. And I use it as a source of positivity, and I reframe it, and mentally reframe it, versus thinking about a sense of loss. He's still adding to my life.
Yeah, oh, that's great.
And then, so I'm trying to think about other leaders that have really shaped my career. I have to say, I always remember my first boss. I think most people do, probably. Hopefully they had a good experience. Mainly because I felt like he was the one that recognised something in me, and brought me in, actually, to Pentland the first time I was here.
Yeah.
So I think I definitely remember him because he was a bit of a pioneer, actually. So around that particular group in the brand that I was working in, he was a leader. He had an all-female team. That was quite a first thing.
For sure.
So he was definitely, from that moment, a person and a man that championed like bringing women into the industry.
Yeah.
So I always remember him, credit him, and thank him for giving me the opportunity as somebody new out of university. And then there's a couple of people through my career that have given me brilliant advice. So leaders, you know, whether it's the Rubin family, whether it's the CEOs of the organisation during 20 years or the brand presidents, there'll have been people through my career that I've watched and been influenced by, and hopefully taken most of the good bits that I've observed through that period.
Yeah.
And then externally, you know, I'm not going to give you any big names because for me, it's not about the name. It's
No.
about like the learning from what I saw, what are the things that I hold on to, and what do I value.
Yeah.
And the style, it isn't a big name actually. And actually, it doesn't even need to be hierarchical.
No, absolutely.
That's the other thing that
Yeah.
I would say is sometimes,
Absolutely.
again, let's dispel another myth
Yeah.
that leaders are at every level of the organisation.
Yeah.
I feel inspired, sometimes when I'm sitting in front of like a new generation of graduates, it makes you feel, that makes you feel humble. And if
Yeah.
you don't recognise it and own it in the moment, then there really is something wrong, right? Because
Yeah.
you can absolutely learn from some of these graduates coming in now are phenomenal, or not even a grad, whether it's an apprenticeship scheme, but there's always something new you can learn. I love spending time with young people. I get a huge benefit from it. I'm really lucky having niece and nephew that, one's at university, one's in the early stage of their career. And then when I catch up with them and they show me what's going on in technology, I feel really old. They're like, Auntie, why didn't you know this? And how do you not know about this? And it keeps me connected in. So I feel inspired by them and what they teach me.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love doing the coaching and mentoring side. Some of the best coaching I did actually was in lockdown. I did some work for I've not really spoken about this before, but I did some work through the Prince's Trust.
Okay.
Because I really missed doing some of that, and actually I felt there was a real opportunity for me to again take myself out of my comfort zone, and I did some work with underprivileged population, people not like me, and I did it deliberately because again I really wanted to test my ability to sit in someone else's shoes. And so what I did on behalf of the Prince's Trust is work with a group of a population of people that were looking to go into the NHS, because at the time there was a big draft on getting recruitment into the NHS.
Yeah.
And so I was trained by, I did quite a lot of online training through lockdown with the Prince's Trust to do a lot of work on helping young people get their CV, interview skills polished. But through that process, I met some amazing people, and their stories were so inspiring. People taking 4 buses to get to college and back in an hour and a half because they don't live, because they want to improve and be better and have a better life. It is incredibly grounding, the work that goes on there.
Yeah, amazing. So, after 20 years in the sporting goods industry, what's the best and the worst thing about our industry?
The best thing about the industry is,
For you?
For me, it's got to be the big moments where it's the pride, right? And everybody comes in, does their job, and goes home, but I feel so privileged that I get to see our brands in the big moments that matter. So if I think about my summer and think about the fact that I had this incredible time at the Olympics for a few days, and seeing the product that started in a laboratory in this location in Nottingham, and knowing the teams that worked on that globally, whether it was here in Nottingham, whether it was in Asia, or whether it was in the USA, that global connected network of people that built one of the fastest suit in the pool, and winning the most gold medals at Paris Olympics is amazing.
Yeah.
And to see that product in its moment, and the way that athletes, the love of the brand and the brand show up in that moment, I don't know how you can put a price on that, and thinking that that's what I do. So similarly, Rugby World Cup would be a huge highlight for me in 2019. I will never forget the noise in the stadium of, we sponsored 9 teams as Canterbury, and I was running the brand at the time. And so as a female running a rugby brand, it was always going to be a special role for me to go and do that role, and then to take out that many teams to Japan, and sit in the stadium and watch Ireland play the hosts of Japan with the Japanese. I was with all the Japanese rugby team, and
Wow.
it was absolutely phenomenal atmosphere. But our brand, standing up against these Goliaths of players on the pitch, and the product, like, my heart was in my mouth thinking, the amount of testing we have done on this jersey, and just knowing that we've given them the best kit to show up. It's amazing. So those are the best bits about working in this industry. I don't know how you put a price on describing that pride, the sense of pride that I carry and in the work that you do. Worst bit about the industry, it's probably slow. I think probably slow is probably the word I'd use. When I think about other industries, they seem to be evolving quicker in the external environment. The fact that we still have broadly 2 seasons of a spring, summer and an autumn, winter, I still find it fascinating that we go to market with those 2 seasons, but the consumer doesn't shop that way. So there is still a huge, and the consumer is going to be more and more demanding. That's one of the biggest things for our industry to think about in the next kind of 5 years, is the influence that the consumer is going to play on our industry. And they are going to be more demanding. They're going to be, their expectations are going to be way higher than ever before, and the pace of change. So I think we are sometimes very slow to respond and spot it quick enough.
I think that's a really good one. I think, and I think within sporting goods, you also have some extremes within that in terms of speed. You have, let's say, the sport brands that are probably within sporting goods rather the quickest, and then you have the outdoor brands which are at the other end and probably the slowest. And I think it's a real danger for us as an industry, because the other thing is that even sporting goods, I don't really like the definition anymore, because the lines are blurring.
No, absolutely.
And if we're not careful, things that traditionally have been outside of those lines are going to come and take the lunch.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a really good one.
I think the other big thing, the other major watch out for the industry in the next 5 years, is just this trend of inactivity. And I'm massively passionate about it. That's why I obviously sit on the FACEY board. But there is a horrific statistic around the World Health Organization. So 31% of people are classed as inactive now, which is they do less than 190 minutes a week. 31%. And that statistic is only going one way up based on the latest data. So it's going to go 35% by 2030, unless we do something different. And the worst part about that is that women, it's an even bigger percentage gap. So there are less women being active, which, the stats don't lie, right? So I think for our industry, that could be one of the biggest challenges. That's what I meant about the consumer, right?
For sure.
And following the consumer and being slow to spot it.
I agree, but as we always have, the flip side of the challenge is it's a massive opportunity for us as an industry.
Huge opportunity.
But I think, and it was great to see the campaign recently when those stats came out, and because what I liked about it was that it was a campaign with many different brands and businesses was saying the same message.
It's the only way we solve it.
Exactly. Together, as an industry, we're so much more powerful in our ability to deliver messages and drive change and lobby governments, etc.
There's a huge job to be done in that space.
Absolutely.
And the kind of time is now, because we have to act and we have to come together. But it is it feels like a big beast, but we've just got to bite-size it down.
For sure.
And do a couple of things really well, actually. And commit, right? It's about making a commitment, and actually, you can say it, but what are you doing about it? And that's how that's how you measure success, is we can all say we're going to do something, but actually we've got to be able to hold ourselves account for that.
What 3 pieces of advice would you give to future leaders of our industry to help them on their career path?
3.
Or what pieces of advice?
Yeah. There's 2 that spring to mind. One is there is 3. Don't rush your career. I see a level of impatience in the next generation to want to come in and want to be the CEO within I don't know, a couple of years. It feels like they want to be CEO tomorrow. So I often say to particularly some of the new people coming into the organisation at the entry point is just, build your career, and it's not a ladder, it's not a race. That's been my experience anyway. And make a few mistakes in the safe space. I often talk about externally that my career has been this climbing frame. Right, it's not been a linear process of a ladder all the way up, and it's not been about getting to the top job. It's never been it's not been the motivating factor for me. As I said to you before, it's been a learning journey for me. That's what's kept me interested. It's what's kept me at Pentland. Is that opportunity to learn, develop, and grow, and breadth has been massively important. So, number 1 is don't rush your career. Number 2 is seek out breadth. If you want to be a leader within a business and have real impact beyond your function, then to do that you have to seek out other perspectives, diversity of thought, see the business through different functions. It's incredibly powerful, and therefore that breadth of role, skill set, competency, toolkit is going to be really important. And the reason it's important, some of the best advice I got was that when you're in the big seats, like I'm in a big role now, is you have to have a toolkit to lean into, because otherwise it's a long way to fall off that ladder.
Yeah.
That's been a fundamental. So don't rush your career, breadth, and then the third one for me would be not afraid to fail.
Yeah.
It's in there with all the dispelling the myths of leadership around humility, not perfect, but there's definitely something in there around not being afraid of failure.
Yeah, great. So last question: if today was your last day and you were retiring, what would your message be? Your final message be to your team?
It's a really thoughtful question, but I think it would be around. I have a book in my mind when I think about it, and the phrase I would always think about, particularly when I was running Canterbury, is "Leave the jersey in a better place." It's a brilliant book called Legacy.
Okay.
And for me, it's about making sure that the business I work on, the brands that we work on, they are amazing, authentic brands. They've been around for over 100 years. They will always be here if they've been well looked after. So our job is the guardianship of that, and it's to leave it in a better place than when we found it.
Yeah.
So it is to create a lasting legacy.
Yeah.
So what do you do with the time that you have here?
Great. I love that guardianship. I think that's a great way of looking at it. Brilliant. Yeah. Well, a perfect place to finish. Thank you very much, Charlotte. You've been super open, and at least for me, it's been incredibly engaging because we've gone a little bit longer than I had planned. But anyway, thank you for giving up your time and for sharing so many amazing insights. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our audience will.
Thank you for asking me.
No worries.
It's a pleasure.
I hope you enjoyed my chat with Charlotte as much as I did. If you did, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Thanks for your support, and I look forward to seeing you soon for our next episode.